and Owen McGarry, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
So this is the first slide. I'm from Cork Simon Community, a volunteer in Cork Simon Community, and this is a slide of Cork Simon Community about 20 years ago. So the Simon Community helps homeless people. So John Street was where the original Simon Community was. So this picture is of our community garden in Cork, and it represents a seed. Everything starts with a seed. So the idea of the Simon Community is a society without homelessness. And our idea in the Simon Community was to build a community vegetable garden. So this was our plan. I want you to keep an eye on the plan because at a slide later on we'll have a look back at the plan and you'll see what happened. So this is the plan for a flower garden in Tiernan Oak. Tiernan Oak is a high support residential unit out in Blackrock. So I got to use Pythagoras' theorem on that. So to build a garden you need really good soil, and it's the same when we're talking about people. People need to be supported, they need to live in a good environment, and it's the same with plants. Plants need to have a good environment in which to grow. So here we're putting soil. This is the first bed that was built, so we're building a vegetable garden in Tiernan Oak. So you can see these are called lazy beds. Whoever called them lazy beds didn't know what they were talking about because of the amount of work it takes if you ever built one of these. So you have to dig up the beds, turn over the soil, and you can see we were doing that with the Kinsale Permaculture School. So we built a polytunnel out in the vegetable garden in Tiernan Oak, and the idea of a polytunnel is to protect the plants when they're seedlings, to help them to grow. So it's nice when it's lashing rain, somewhere to go. So the first thing that you do with your seed is you plant it in one of these modular trays, and the idea of the modular tray is that when you put the seed in the modular tray, you're putting it in a protected environment. So in that protected environment, it's nourished, it gets light, and it's protected. It's inside a polytunnel. You can see the wall of the polytunnel. And then when you're doing that, at the same time we're building more lazy beds outside. You can see the Myplex in the middle there and the planking. All of that stuff is donated. The Myplex is to stop the weeds transferring between one bed and the other. So when the plant, or when the seedling is grown quite a good bit, well, there's a process called hardening off. It's where you take it outside during the day, and you leave it out during the day where it lives out in the cold for a bit, then you bring it back in at night, and then when it's ready at that stage, you can leave it and you can plant it out in the garden. So you can see this plant here, it has been eaten there. So it's been eaten by some sort of bacteria or parasite. So when it goes outside, there's a whole load of extra threats. And that's the same thing with the Simon community. You know, there's people in our society that are getting threatened by a whole lot of things. And then this one here represents support. So that the idea of the growth and nurturing of a plant is that it needs support. So this is a pea plant here, and you can see that it stretches and reaches up to the nearest support. So this is one of our volunteers in the garden. The garden is, all the work in the garden is done by volunteers. So this is Kiri, he's up at the bar there. And there's 650 volunteers who work with the Simon community, and they work hand in glove with the permanent staff. So all the work done in the garden that you see here is done by volunteers or by the residents themselves. And then this is, later on, you can see the plants are growing away and they're being protected. There's a whole lot of pigeons on the site, so the pigeons like the cabbage. So that's what we're doing there. We have a whole lot of netting to protect. And you can see the beds now. This is a couple of years later after the beds are built. There's lots of lettuce and cabbage and peas. And that's the final shot of the vegetable garden. So that was the first project in Tiernan Oak, was to build the vegetable garden. So you can see all the beds and the polytunnel there. And all the produce goes to the residents, and it's all organic, biodynamic. We get the seeds from seed savers, and we save the seeds ourselves every year. So after we did the the vegetable garden we thought we could have a rest, but then the residents had this idea about having flower beds. So the Simon this year have this flower bed competition. So each of the residents in Tiernan Oak has their own flower bed. And this is a group of volunteers from EMC who came along during the day to help us to build the beds. So the residents, these are the residents here, so they all went to a garden centre, they got to pick their own flowers, whatever flowers they wanted, and they had their own concept of what they wanted to do with the beds. You saw the way the beds were designed. They're designed with railway sleepers so people can sit down. If you have a disability or you're not able to stand for a long time, they're able to sit on the edge of the bed. So you can see this bed here was one of the residents, what he did was he notched his bed. And how he did that, that's a railway sleeper, how he notched it was he designed his own tool. He got a brush handle and some sandpaper and stuck it on, and he notched the bed. And it took him hours and hours to do that. And this is another bed made by another resident, and what he decided to do was he got flowers that were green, white and orange, and he made a tricolour. So the stones border the tricolour, and the flowers green, white and orange are going to make a tricolour. So it's surprising what the residents came up with, and this is the final bed, the final sets of beds as it looks. And that was all done at the start of this year, and it was all done by the residents and the volunteers. And it's amazing just to see what people can do, and it changes, like the excitement and the joy that the homeless residents got out of making a garden like that. The last thing is that this year the Simon it's going for 40 years, and the idea of the Simon is believing in people. So I think that the garden and the beds and the flowers and that, it just shows what people can do, and hopefully it'll help to change our ideas of what homeless people are like. Thank you.